I like to say this. I'm a reformed church kid, if that makes sense. And I'm not talking about theology or anything like that. I'm just like a reformed church. I grew up in the church, and grew up around church and grew up around church people. And I always, kind of shy away from testimony time because I was like, I don't have any kind of crazy story or anything like that. And, I didn't have this radical conversion and all that stuff. But while those radical conversions are amazing and awesome to hear about, I kind of think that more people have a story a lot more similar to mine, out there, in that, there's a lot of us. There is a lot of us who grew up in the church.
Yeah.
And I like to say this: we grew up in the church. We knew the hymns, but we didn't know him. You know, and I was there. My mom, I went to church because it was what my mom was doing, and
Right.
and my mom has a radical story
Mm.
of conversion and coming to Christ, and I was kind of in the wake of all of that. So she was getting her life right, and she was getting things, and so while my older brother didn't get to go to church the same way I did, I went to church every week. My mom took me to Sunday mornings, midweek Wednesday nights. I was doing my homework underneath the chairs,
Right.
falling
Same.
asleep,
Yeah.
right?
Uh-huh.
Just every time,
Same.
prayer meeting, just
Yes.
whining. I was hungry. I wanted to go home, and mom stood chit chatting with whoever. If she was going to women's group, she was dragging me along because she was a single mom, and so I grew up very adjacent to church folk, church people. I was in it. I was in the Sunday school. I went to Sunday school. My mom for a time was my teacher in Sunday school, which
Wow.
was all
bad?
kinds of,
How
yeah,
was
that was terrible.
How was
I was the worst behaved kid in Sunday school because my mom was the teacher, if that makes
No, I
sense.
get it. Yep.
And I was there. We were there. I like to say this, I remember I prayed the prayer. I prayed the prayer when I was 4. So when people ask me, where were you before Christ? I was like preschool. That's where I was before Christ, right? Kind of thing.
Right.
But
Exactly.
but I prayed the prayer because it was something to do. I don't think when I think about my spiritual formation, when I think about when God got a hold of my heart, it wasn't really until probably my teens where I think God really got a hold of me, and I began to understand some things about everything that I had grown up in. For me, from the ages of 4 to 12, 13, it was really about community. Church was really about just like, I just wanted to be with people, and mom was gonna make me go anyway. So there was a whole group of us who grew up together. Our parents are having these amazing spiritual encounters.
Yes.
And I tell this one story. We used to have one of those fire alarms on the corner. Do you remember those?
The red boxes, the red.
Yeah, the red box.
Yeah.
And I remember that we would do silly. Our parents are praying their hearts out, they're singing, and we're in the lobby, or we're supposed to be downstairs or somewhere else, and we're sneaking out onto the block. And I remember one night, I think it was midweek, and we pulled the fire alarm. One of the guys we were rolling with just pulled the fire alarm, and so fire department comes, the whole nine, and they're looking for it, and people were like, "Oh, it was those kids. They came out of the church. They ran back in," and so firemen come inside the church and they start disrupting what's going on because they're like, someone pulled the fire alarm down the block, one of these kids, and everybody did one of these things. They were like, it was that guy, kind of thing.
Right.
And we got in trouble, but that was why we went to church. We went to church to hang out with each other. We went to church to see each other.
Right.
And that was, for me, church was always about community. And it was always about just having people that I can hang out with, that my mom would let me hang out with. And growing up in Brooklyn, growing up in Bushwick, in the 1980s, in the early 90s, there wasn't a lot of people my mom was okay with me hanging out with on the block, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And church became that safe haven My friends from church became those safe people to hang out. We were all in the same boat. Our parents were at church and were believers, and we were Sunday school kids. I don't know that we were deep in our faith in any particular way, but we were there. And so for us, I think everybody at some point had to navigate what that meant, whether it was I'm here because my parents make me come, or I'm here because I want to be here. And some of us made that transition, and some of us didn't make that transition. You know, my brother and I are 14 years apart. And my mom was in a very different place in her life when she had him versus when she had me.
Yeah.
And both just like, I mean, think about it. So my mom had me, she was 33. She had my brother, she was 19. You think about your life at 19 versus 33.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So my mom was a very different person at that time, and was not necessarily serving the Lord, and had been around things. My grandparents have a great conversion story where God kind of got a hold of their heart, but so there's a legacy of faith in my family, but my mom was kind of doing her own thing. She was married, and it wasn't a good situation. She had my brother, it became abusive, she had to run away, and she was more focused on different things. When I came around, I think that's when my mom really made a couple of really tough decisions in her life, where she was like, hey, I gotta figure out a career. I've got to do some things. My mom went from being a secretary to being a teacher. And that happened right, you know, when I was born. She made that transition. She also went from like kind of being in and out of her faith a little bit to kind of just saying, all right, I need for this kid, I need to get it right. You know, I need to serve the Lord. And began that process of really dedicating herself to God and dedicating her life to you know, serving and worshiping and following. And so my brother and I say this, we had two different moms.
Wow, I can see how. Yeah.
So we had two different moms. You know, my mom, by the time I came around, my mom was like, she was on me about school. She was on me about reading. She was on me about, she was making sure, like I said before, she was getting me to church, making sure I was involved. She was helping me make good decisions. She was having her own spiritual awakening. She was getting to a place of moving from a place of kind of immaturity to maturity in her own walk. And so she was making decisions based on that. And then there was also, you know, I would say there's also the socioeconomic thing where she was moving from being, you know, a secretary to a teacher, moving to a different type of profession. And just things were getting better in my life. Things were getting better for us.
Yeah.
And so that changed the game. That changed the game, you know, dramatically. She was still a single mom raising two boys, but really after about the age of 4 or 5, you know, my brother wasn't in the house anymore. And so she was raising one son. She was raising him in the church. She was raising him as a professional. She was in a different place in her life. And so I think that had a dramatic impact directly on you know, my life and even my faith. I look back on things now and I go, my mom, she had me adjacent to it, but she never forced me to do anything. She never forced me to, you know, believe the things that she believed. And I remember very clearly a conversation we had. I think I was a little bit older. I was kind of in my early teens, where she's like, hey, if you don't want to go to church, you don't have to, but I would really like you to.
Wow. Now that's different.
Was.
Because growing up, I feel like we have similar stories in that whole growing up in the church and being in church every day of the week. I couldn't know. My mother and many other people that I grew up with, their parents were like, I'll leave the house, you leave the house. Like, ain't no, you know what I mean? So that's very different than what I know the old school to be like, right? I remember coming in the house. I remember my friend and I were out hanging out. We came in at 5 o'clock, come mother. We all going to church, and mother in our church and everything. She was like, I leave here at 7 o'clock. 7 a.m. We came in at 5.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we all going. I just want to be in the church that Sunday, like, woo, trying to stay awake.
Yep.
But yeah, wow. And why do you think she did that? Why do you think her attitude or her stance was like that?
I think, my mom demonstrated a lot of wisdom, I think, raising me. Um, I think there was also some things watching my brother, and I think there was part of her that tried to maybe not force my brother, but really strongly encourage him to be in church. Like, even while she was kind of figuring things out,
Yeah.
she was like, come on, we're gonna go to. And so my brother, he grew up kind of different. And then later in his teens was kind of not forced, but around church people. And, you know, um, it didn't go well. It didn't, not that it didn't stick, so to
No,
speak,
I hear you. Yeah.
and I think that mom was just conscious of that, or at least aware um that I was my own person and that I was kind of figuring things out. But I also think that my mom very wisely was like, saw me as a good kid, and I had a strong kind of code of ethics. I wasn't really out there wilding or doing anything crazy,
That's fair
even
enough.
amongst.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I think she trusted me at that point to make good
Right.
decisions.
Right.
Um, I've often wondered if I had gone and be like, nope, I'm not going to church no more, what her reaction would have been. But as a good son, I felt like at the very least it was, I could go on some, I could give that time. It wasn't anything to me to do that for her,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, because I wanted to honor my mom in that way, and she had sacrificed so much for me, so it made sense for me to, at the very least, do this thing that she would like me to do.
Right.
Because of that, and because I never felt forced.
Pressured. Yep.
I never felt like that, like, oh, you got, even when I was there, and even when, like, you know, um, like as I got older, I never felt like I had to, like I was made to be there. I know friends who live that out, but I never felt like forced. I never felt that pressure. I felt strongly encouraged.
Yeah.
But again, because church was community for me, even when I wasn't so spiritually influenced, I was influenced to be there because there were people I liked there. There were people I
Yeah.
liked to hang out with. And then as I got older, there were people that I really liked to hang out with. And I wanted to be at church for them because they were there every
Look,
week.
we're Millie. No. Look, so I just think that's something, what you're saying is very important, and to each his own, to each church, do your thing. But I just think that, and each parent, you guys, you raise your children the way that hopefully is the right way, but the way that you want. I like that you're saying, one, she didn't force you, but she said, I do really want you to go.
Yeah.
And then because you had that love for the community at the church, it was already a pull to want to come, which I'm sure made your mom very happy.
Yeah.
I was on a call this morning, and we were talking about just First John love, right? What's the scripture? See, I'm so bad, but it was talking about the love of God, and one of my comments was, He doesn't force you. Even to come to Him, He doesn't force you. Yeah. So I'm relating that to what you're saying, because I feel like it could be similar. Parents will one, tell their children, or it seems like they're forcing them, maybe not for a relationship with Christ, but because it's like, no, I need you to be off the streets. You coming with me. I don't need things to happen when you inside the home while I'm somewhere else. And I get it. But I like first of all, I like how your mom expressed it to you, which made you feel like this wasn't like, oh, I gotta do this. And because at the same time, God is not like, you gotta love me. Right. Love me, you better serve me. He's not. He could. I always say that. He could do it. He could do that.
Yeah.
He could have created us like that. But He didn't. And then people decide on their own whether they want to serve Him or not. Right? And then I feel like the serving is more authentic when it's like that too.
Yeah. I grew up with a lot of PKs and a lot of church kids,
Right.
like I said before,
Yeah.
and everybody had their own reason for being there. And some people were, they church, they were hostages at church, like they had to
Right.
go,
Yeah.
and other people, they kind of floated in and out. Parents either were, I'd like you to be here, whatever, um again, my mom just she I never felt forced to be there.
Right.
And that combined with that community aspect where there were people my age that I clicked with, that I connected with,
Yeah.
that that let me be me, and we
Yes. Yeah.
walked and we did life together. I
Mhm.
think that was key to keeping me from uh some of the big things in this world. It doesn't mean that I was perfect, and doesn't mean that I didn't fall
Right.
into some stuff
Yeah.
and whatnot. But by and large, I avoided a lot of the pitfalls and mistakes that a lot of my church and non-church friends kind of
Mhm.
fell into. And that's, I think I see that as God's favor over my life. I've had that discussion a lot with people where I've been like, why didn't I fall into this? Or why didn't I fall into that? Or why didn't I, rebel in this way? And sometimes, I wonder, I'm like, I had the same setup as so and so. I had the
Mhm.
same thing as,
Mhm. So
why is it? And part of it is just that wasn't God's plan and purpose for my life.
yes.
Um, but then, there's also, that I think there's a sensitivity to the spirit of God
Mhm.
that I think that my mom instilled in me early on. I
Mhm.
don't know how other people grew up, but I can remember times where my mom was just kind of reading scriptures as I was falling to sleep.
And same. Yep.
I would wake up most mornings to my mom crying out in prayer for me, for my brother, for our family, for our
Yeah.
church.
Yeah.
I know that that's something that my grandparents did every morning at 6 a.m. were on their knees praying and crying out to God for all of us.
Mhm.
And so I know one of those differentiators, and I'll say this to the day I die, is that, I had a praying mom and I had a praying
Yes.
grandmother.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and I saw them pray and I
Yeah.
heard their prayers,
Absolutely. Yeah.
you know. And so I think I'm alive today. I'm where I am today because of those prayers. No doubt. No doubt.
I remember, speaking of having a mother who you heard pray, being in the bed with my mom one night, and usually sometimes she'll just get up randomly and just go into the living room. I see the light on from the bedroom, and she would be reading the word. But I don't know, this particular night, I turned over and I was like, I got left behind. I got left behind. I literally was like, I was like, Mom. She was like, get up, what's the problem? In my head, I don't know what I was going through at that time, but I was like, I got left. Where is my mother? And then I called out and she was like, why are you so mad? I'm here. That's so
That is awesome. That is awesome.
But yes, I think it all matters and makes a difference in leading you to Christ. So you are loving the community that you are a part of at church. Your mom is being a great mom because I just love what she allowed you to do. But are you saved now, or when do you say yes to Christ?
Yeah. So this is one of those things where, I can look back and when I was 4, making a decision, not really understanding it. I remember, and again, this is my mom's influence. I remember having inklings of understanding about things um, throughout kind of my childhood and into kind of that tween, those tween years, like, 11, 12, 13,
Yeah.
where I just felt like, I saw things differently than some of my friends. I knew that there was something there. I look back on it now from where I'm at now and I go, okay, that's God preparing my way and preparing some things in me. But I think even then, um, this church thing again was a church thing, it was a community thing.
Yeah.
I think God really got a hold of my life around high school. And that's why for many years, high school ministry was so important to me. Both me and my wife Millie had encounters with God, in high school.
Mm.
And what I mean by that is, so I'm in high school, and I am a freshman in high school, and I have a dramatic kind of injury. I end up dislocating my hip
Mm.
in high school, first year of high school. So I ended up dislocating my hip. I ended up having 4 surgeries in 1 year in high school. So second half of freshman year to the second half of sophomore year. So I missed an entire year of high school.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now socially, you understand
That's it.
that's
That's it.
traumatizing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and what I saw was all the friends that I had made in high school suddenly evaporate,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because everybody's life goes on. You're the
Yeah.
one who's stuck at home. I
Yeah.
was now getting homeschooled. I'm having surgeries. I can't walk. I have to do all this rehab, all these other things that are going on. And a couple of things began to happen at that time. One, obviously, I'm going through this traumatic experience. I'm my mom's baby. She's praying every day.
Yes.
You talk about reading scriptures. I was in the hospital. My mom was reading scriptures to me. In fact, to this day, the Bible that I keep in the pulpit at church is the Bible that my mom had next to me bedside during that time of my life. I have that Bible and I keep it there as just a reminder of what God was doing. And so at that time I was bummed out and sad, but it was the church that kind of came around me and loved me. It wasn't my school friends or my friends from the block, but it was the youth group and the young people who came to visit me in the hospital and
Yeah.
hung out with me. And it was great because all of a sudden now I had a ride to church. Normally we would walk to church, but then now they were picking me up and drop. So I couldn't say no to going to church at
Right.
all,
Yeah.
even if I wanted to, because now I was getting picked up, dropped off, this whole thing. And at that time, I just saw my world get really small and really tight.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And when it got really small and really tight, the people who were there were the God people, were my friends at church, my friends at youth group, the people in our church community, just kind of rallying around when I needed help during the day. When my mom was working, it was different people at church taking turns coming over and helping me. It was my youth group. It was all that. And so for me, I think at that point was when I really began to feel like there's something here. There's something. It's not just a community thing. It's not just there's a love thing. There's something here that I need to recognize. I went on this retreat. We used to do this retreat called CYE, Christ in You Encounter.
Okay.
And it was basically a 3-day retreat that we did the whole thing in our church building. So you were locked in for the weekend, and it was a series of talks and different events and different things. And it was a retreat that had been done for decades at this point. And our church would do two of them a year. And I was finally old enough to go. And so right at the end of my healing, I was just going back to school, sophomore year. I get to go to this retreat. And there's a lot of different components to the retreat, but there's this one point where they kind of put you in a room and we're all together and people just pray for each other as they feel led. It's called an anointing service. There's a little thing of oil and you begin to just anoint people and as God leads you. And a woman who became very dear to me years later, a good friend of my mom, came to me and just began to pray a prayer, and she began to pray words that only God knew. There were things in me, there was brokenness in me that I had been carrying for, at that point for a number of years.
Right.
And I had never really talked about it, but it was the source of anger, it was a source of some bitterness, it was a source of some brokenheartedness, it was a source of stress, and I was dealing with it. And then after having this kind of injury and feeling broken physically, she came and she just prayed these words, and they were very simple words. She's just like, hey, you just need to know that the Lord just says that you're not a mistake. And the loop that was in my head for the years leading up to this moment was that, hey, you're a mistake. You're a mistake. You're a mistake. You don't belong. You're a mistake. And those were the words that I had never verbalized to anybody in
Right.
years. And I just kind of let those and she prayed that over me, and my heart, my mind, everything about at that moment I knew that God was real.
And this is in the midst of, and I'll go back to it, having a community, having people around you, but yet there's something there that, like, I guess is missing, right? And this lady, I'm just like, God, you're right. God is so real to the point He will send someone to speak directly to your situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
No one knows this. You weren't able to verbalize it. You felt it. You knew inside, like, but I don't. And then she comes and she's like,
Yep. I'll be honest with you. I went on that retreat because there was two girls there that I was really into,
and
I was, and I was, in, you know, that was really my motivation. I was like, oh, okay. And the whole weekend, I don't know, I don't remember one thing that was spoken that weekend. My mind
wait,
was
how old were you?
There. I would have been 14, 15.
Makes sense.
And my mind was totally somewhere else. And that was like the last day or the last night, and man, it rocks my world. It rocked my world because it was just so on point. It was just so what I needed to hear. It was just so, spoke directly to my situation and to the things that I had not uttered, the things that I didn't even know how to utter and to put out there. God knew how to put it together. He spoke it to me. He spoke what I needed to hear. And I would say that, it changed the trajectory of my life. It set me on a path, not of perfection, but of progression to where I am today.
Yeah, just real quick. It changed your life, right? What? The fact that she spoke exactly what you needed or what was going on?
I think that the fact that it wasn't about her, but I really felt a sense in my heart that God was speaking to me in that moment. And the word describes that, the sheep know his voice. And at 14, 15, I don't really understand that concept, but I knew the voice of God. Though it might have been spoken through this woman, I knew the voice of God when I heard it. And that's what was transformative. Because when God speaks, there's no, you can't deny it's God's voice. There's just something about it. Like, I don't know if you've had that moment where God is speaking directly to you about something. There is no, it doesn't matter who's actually physically speaking the words. When God is talking to you and to your situation, it is transformative. It changes the way you operate, and you cannot go back. I don't care what you think, you can't go back to living the way you were living before. You can pretend, you can try. It's going to be all kinds of miserable and all kinds of misery. But once you know that God is real, and that God is real, man, it is wild. It is wild.
So she speaks to you in that moment. Is that the moment you say yes, or does time pass, or are you come to the altar type person, or you just kind of in that moment tell God yes?
Yo, it's so funny you say that. Like growing up in church, the altar call was like, I've been to services where they want to scare the crap out of you to get you to come to the altar kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah. I saw the movies, the videos, all kinds of stuff. I went to church. We did a lot of street evangelism. There was an altar call every night when we were in the summertime, right? So, but me, I've never been an altar call guy. I've never felt that was genuine for me. And even as a pastor now, I remind people that the 3 feet in front of the pulpit isn't any different than the 3 feet by the chair, that you're sitting in. What's really the important piece is the heart part. The altar that you lay down in your heart. Like if nothing is happening in your heart, It doesn't matter where
Don't
you
matter.
go in the
So
building. It
true.
doesn't matter who lays
Yeah.
their hands on you. It doesn't matter, if the music is all that. None of that matters, because if it's not happening in your heart, if it isn't a surrender of the heart. And I think for me at that moment was the first time I really felt like a surrender in my heart to say, God, you're real, and I want to serve you, and I want to follow you, whatever that looks like. You know.
That's so good. That's so good. I keep saying this on every video that it looks different for everyone.
Yeah.
It looks different for everyone, and I like that you're pulling out stuff about the heart. That's what really matters, and God sees that. You can put on, you can say yes and not mean it, but God really He knows whether you have genuinely said yes to Him. And once again, He's not going to force it. He's not going to make you believe.
That's right.
Yeah, it has to be willing. So I love that type of love for us from Him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how is life once this happens? So you're 15, and then what's life after that?
After that encounter, I think things really took off for me. My wife, Millie, who became my wife later, but she joined, had her own radical conversion. Some of our other friends, we just started getting really, really tight after that. And we had a great pastor who saw that passion, and then really just like said, hey, I'm gonna love you guys, warts and all. I'm gonna love you guys, and you know what, we're gonna equip you and build you up. And not only we had a pastor, but we had a church who came around us, and really at that season just began to elevate us and just lift us up and include us, and we were included in everything. And all of a sudden, we went from, I mean, literally in 6 months, we went from having, cassettes leading our worship to all of a sudden the youth we were the band now for the church.
Right.
And so we're leading worship, and our youth group, we started a drama team. And so now we're traveling and we're doing stuff. We're doing street evangelism. And a lot of it was led by that crew that over the course of like 2 years, God just assembled. And then for the next 3 years, we were just off to the races. And we were a part of every aspect of the church. We were doing everything. We were music, and it was just such a great proving ground for our faith, because we had to go through it. We had to grow up. We had to experience some things. We made mistakes. We made big mistakes. We made small mistakes, but we also were loved enough and loved through it. And so for me personally, I went from being at church to being the church. Our youth group went from just kids who went to church to we became the church. We were at the church. At that point, for those years, we were the church. We were the worship band. We were the leading initiatives. We were doing stuff. I preached my first sermon. So if that experience happened, I was 15. I preached my first sermon at 17. And that was again, we went from having a youth group that kind of got together and we did fun stuff to our youth group was for youth by youth. And so we were leading sessions. We were putting Bible studies together. We were asking questions. We were challenging each other, and we were growing in our faith in a really cool way. But what was so cool about it was that the people around us, and this is a testament to just God moving and knowing what we needed. The people around us were, for the most part, really understanding and really gracious and really loving, and loved us through those things. Loved us because they saw the passion, they saw God on us. And I think that they were just like, whatever we have to do, whatever we have to put up with, whatever we have to put up for them, to support them, we're going to do this because God's doing something in them, and we don't want them to walk away. We don't want them to disappear.
I'm putting a pin there. I have to, because it's so important that the body of Christ continues to do that, right? I want to be careful and make sure I say this right. There are many churches that are doing it. I could come from another way of saying that. But there are many churches doing it, right? They are they see something in the youth. They see something in just the newbies that are coming, and it's like we have to disciple and support, and because otherwise, I just the whole time you've been emphasizing community. It's one of my favorite words, like really, because I know how important it is. And sometimes when teenagers come to Christ, sometimes they get lost in the sports. I was telling someone that churches have to really step up their college game.
Yeah.
I just think so. I know a church that really does a good job at that, and I'm like, oh, I wish that more, churches could do that. And I'm saying that hopefully I'm sure there's churches that have a really good ministry, college ministry, because I always say once 15, 16, once the teenagers, the children become that age, you either have them or you don't.
Yeah.
Because outside influences are so strong. Yeah. And I'm speaking to myself. Like, I mean, I didn't stray too far, but I was like, that's looking way more enticing and fun than what's going on over here. And that's my teenage mind, right? Yeah. But I just love that your church, the people in your church were understanding, and they like rallied around you guys and pushed you forward instead of like, now y'all too young, you can't do that. Let's just sit, listen, and walk. Like, yeah, I just think it's important.
I think, I've got a lot of thoughts about youth and young adults. 13 years of youth and young adult ministry have a way of showing you a couple of things. Yeah. But I think some of the biggest lessons I learned were from that season of my life when I was a teenager, and I had some influential people who were gracious and loving. And here's what it is. Young people have talent and passion.
Yes.
Young people have talent and passion. It's the church's job to help them build character.
Yeah.
Because that's the one thing that you won't have at 15. You don't have much character. Most 15-year-olds don't have a lot of character.
Right.
They don't have the fortitude to be like, yeah, I'm going to stand up for it. And so what churches have to do, and that's part of the discipleship, is we help them build character.
Right.
So we want young people, young adults of character, because character keeps you where your talent can't keep you. Right? Your talent can open doors, but you're only going to be there for a couple minutes before people realize, you're lacking. Yeah. And so as a church, we have to rally around our young people and our young adults to help them build character. And so one of the things that I look back on now, and I had a great senior pastor who was with us, who was helping me build character, and sometimes that looked like him just looking at me and he goes, you need to go fix that when it came to, a relationship or something. You need to go fix that. What he was teaching me in those moments was character. He was teaching me to say, hey, there's a right way to handle yourself. There's a right way to do this. And you're talented. And he would say, you're talented. You got all this other stuff, but you got to build this other piece. And if you don't build that other piece, that other stuff ain't going to take you very far. And he was right on the money. He was right on the money. And I think that as a church and churches, I think you're right. Statistically, we know that college age young adults, they leave the church and they don't come back until they start having kids and they get married. That's how the statistics. And so what's crazy to me is that then we lose people for 10 years. They get tumbled through life, and then they come back, and sometimes they come back and they're broken messes. And so then we spend the first couple of years fixing them or helping them get to a place where then they can now begin to sow into other people, and now they're 35, 36 years old. Yep. And we've lost a whole decade or more of good stuff, when if we just love people through the mess that they are when they're 15 and 16 and 17, you get to rock with them through 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. You get to rock with them as young adults, and the churches that do that, man, they're nigh unstoppable.
Yeah.
they still need some of those senior voices. They still need some of those wisdom,
Absolutely.
those pillars.
Yes.
But of the but they can do, and most churches you look at, and I'll be honest, as a pastor of a church, that's one of the things that we're sore in is just that 20 to 30-year-old crowd. It's tough.
It's
and
hard. Yeah.
and building young people of character is important. I'm a product of someone who
Yes.
sowed character into me,
Yeah.
so that even when I did stray, even when I did fall,
Sure.
it was a short fall.
Very short. Yep.
And then there was a redemption and a
Yeah.
reconciliation, and I was there through the rest of it.
Yeah. He wouldn't allow us to go too far.
Yeah.
And I would try. I'm telling you, I would try. I was like, I'm doing this. I'm gonna do this tonight, okay? Like, and he just wouldn't. Either I would feel convicted or plans would change.
Yeah.
So you just got me all yoked up. That's it. Like,
I say this about a lot of young people. It's like, once you know the truth, you can't unknow it. And a lot of my friends who were believers or who grew up in the church, a lot of their issues, a lot of their pain, a lot of their stuff comes from the fact that they know the truth and they're trying to live like they don't.
Yeah. 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 It's that, surrender.
Yep.
And I don't, this sounds good, but I don't want people to think that, like, and you said it earlier, we still were teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
Still went through all the emotions and trials that teenagers, young adults go through.
Absolutely. I mean, wild stuff sometimes too. Like I don't think that goes away. I just think that there's God loves us unconditionally.
Yeah.
He corrects us, but He still loves us unconditionally. When you find people on this earth who love you unconditionally and will correct you but still love you unconditionally, right? Those are the people who have the most impact in your life. And again, I had a handful of people like that in those years that were influential and are still influential and still impacting.
Where is Danny now? How is life post accepting Christ?
Yeah, I think, every success that I've had, I owe it to God. I don't just say that as like the award ceremony. I want to thank God, Mama, I want to thank, but like I realize that everything that I have comes from Him.
Yes.
And that realization is awesome because it does two things. One, it reminds me that I'm not the be all end all. It's a perspective thing. And two, I don't have to sweat stuff because I know that it doesn't all rest on me. God has got me. God has continued to show Himself faithful to me. So I don't have to stress nothing. I don't have to be out there stressing my kids because the promise is that God has got my children. I don't have to be out there kind of going crazy over the success of church because God has got them. I don't have to think about career because I've been bivocational my entire ministry life. I don't have to worry about career because God has had His hand in all of that. My marriage, it belongs to God, and so He's kept us together 21 years married, 24 years together as a couple, and God has had His hand on it every step of the way through some big deal breakers, big, tough stuff, tough seasons. God has continued to have my back, and I love that because that's been my life. And especially in these recent years, is that everyone is looking for the miracle, they're looking for the miraculous, they're looking for the big ticket items from God. They want mountains moved, they want people healed, lame walking, all that other stuff. And while my God has the power to do that, also it's very powerful in my everyday walk, in my everyday life. I've learned the importance of steadfastness and faithfulness. The word tells us that He is faithful to the faithful. And God is in those big things, but more often than not, more of my days are not big, bombastic things. More of my days are just getting up, going to work, getting dressed, interacting with my kids, talking to my wife, and knowing that God has got me and that God is leading me and that I get to be Jesus, I get to be His hands and His feet and just let it go every single day.
How did you get there? Somebody might be like, well, how do I get there? How do I get to those types of like practices? Because life is, as you say, life is life. And although I've given my life to Christ, and maybe there's somebody else who's like that now. How do I get to a place where I can be like, God is out?
Yeah. I would like to say that that I had easy path here. It hasn't always been easy. Um, I've struggled, just in life, and we all have our vices, we all have things that we lean on, and there have been different times in my life where I have chased things that look good but weren't good, and I think a lot of what I've learned has been, I wouldn't say trial and error, but a lot of it has just been hindsight, and where I've gone through some things, I've gone through, and difficult seasons. I've struggled with physical health. I've struggled with mental health. And my marriage has been tough at times. Raising kids has been tough at times. Ministry has been brutal at times, and family stuff has been brutal at times. But all in all, what I've began to see is I didn't add anything to the situation by going nuts. I didn't add anything to the situation by, oh my God, what are you doing? By getting angry or by getting upset or any of those things. And of course, all that stuff is natural. We have natural inclinations to feel a certain type of way. Not saying that I'm ignoring my emotions, but I didn't add anything to situations feeling that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't add anything by acting out of my emotional state. So what I've learned is over time is like, I think right now I'm just like, as things come, Lord, give me strength, give me peace. God, if this is where you want me, then show me what it is that I need to learn from this. So that even in the bad stuff, even when things are like, come up and I'm like, the heck is that? Lord, show me what this is. There's been many prayers that I've prayed, where it's like, Lord, I don't get what you're doing here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand this.
Yeah.
But I'm just gonna trust you.
That's
In fact, if you'll give me the space, I'll share with you something recently that happened. In 2022, I was working for a retail bank, and I was there for, at that point, it was my 20th year. I had spent my entire adult life working for this bank, and I got an offer to jump ship and go work for a startup.
Mm-hmm.
And so I took it.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, Lord, I had powwows with the kids. I talked to everybody that I could about it, people, and so I made the jump. I jumped to a startup doing what I do. I'm an L&D specialist, learning and development specialist. So I employee training, regulatory training, all that stuff. That's kind of my field. I moved to the startup, and it is off to the races. I mean, I am literally, my day is wild. Startups are crazy because everything changes every day. We're moving stuff. We're training people. I think in the 2 years that I was there, we trained upwards of 3,000 people through our system in 2 years, which is bonkers. But we trained all these people. I kept getting promoted. I was making more money than I had ever seen in my life. I'm like, oh, this is dope. You know, I'm in the cool crowd with all the cool kids. We're doing cool energy things. We're doing all this other stuff. It was dope. It was off the chain. And we're going full speed. And I'm getting, again, every few months I'm getting promoted. I'm getting more money, all this other stuff. Boom, 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 boom. My life is changing dramatically to the point that we're starting to be like, yo, it's time to start, you know, but we about to get up out of the hood. We about to do some other
Mhm.
stuff now, you know. And God was just showing provision, and I was doing all kinds of stuff. It was really cool. It was really cool. And then in November of last year, I get a phone call. I'm just working from home one day. They're like, "Hey, can you jump on a call?" Boom, we no longer need you. That was it. Just,
Wow.
we no longer need you. That was you know, that was the conversation. We're restructuring. We have to get lean and mean, and we need to let go of a big chunk of the company. And so your position's been eliminated.
Mhm.
Um, you know, and it was one of those things like, your position's been eliminated, and then as soon as they got off the call, my computer goes off, and that's it. I no longer have access to everything. They shut everything down. And I got up. I was actually sitting in this seat right here. I get up, I walk over to my kitchen, I look at my wife, and I say, "Hey, I just got laid off." And she looked at me, I looked at her, and I just remember just saying to her, "We're not going to freak out.
Yes. Yeah.
We're going to trust God."
Yeah.
Now, I got 5 kids. I got 2 kids in college, right? Bills due, all kinds of other stuff. So we're not going to freak out. We're gonna wait on God. And so we do. So we do. And you know, the next day I take a day to like breathe. The next day I'm like, all right, let's start looking for some jobs. Prior to getting laid off, I had thrown an application. I was testing something out. I had sent an application to a company just out of the blue because I was testing out this new resume maker and I wanted to see if it would get a hit. I just sent it to this company, not even thinking anything of it. That company calls me, says, "Hey, we want to do a phone call interview with you." I was like, "Sure." I was like, "I'll try. I'll do an interview with you." My interview was scheduled 2 days after I got laid off.
Wow.
Now I start looking for jobs. I'm like, I got this phone thing. I start looking for jobs, and I start moving a little bit, and I start getting ahead of myself. I start applying to a bunch of jobs, and I'm like, well, you know, I got to pay the bills. And I felt the Lord just saying, "Stop, chill out."
Mhm.
Now I'm trying to be like, "Lord, but you don't understand." And I'm just like, and then I'm just like, you know, Lord saying, "Chill out." I start hanging out with some pastor friends, and they're like, "Hey, man, if God's telling you to chill out, you should chill out. You should chill out." I make this crazy decision. After a week of being laid off, I decide I'm not going to apply for any jobs. I'm not.
Okay.
I'm going to wait on God. I don't know where this is going. I don't know how this is going to work.
Yeah.
I'm going to wait. I had so much peace about it. I kid you not. I was just like, I'm going out. I'm going out to lunch. we're doing things around the house. I'm going to church, taking care of things. I'm picking the kids up from school. I'm
Yeah.
just like chilling. I get a phone call from that job that I had applied that had the phone call. Just the one company, they call me. They're like, "Hey, can you do an interview?" I said, "Lord, do I do this or do I just stay? What do you want me to do? I think you're telling me to chill." And I just felt like so much peace. I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go to this interview. I go to the interview. I don't even suit up. I'm in a shirt and a sweater.
Ah,
I just go. I'm like, "Lord, if it's you, I want it. If it's not
right.
you, I don't want it."
Yeah, yeah,
I go
yeah.
and I do the interview. It goes okay, I guess. I leave. I get a phone call the next morning, 7 a.m. "Could you do another interview with the head of HR?" I'm like, all right. Again, I'm sitting in this exact seat. I get on a Zoom call. I do another interview.
But a suit this time, right?
I put on a polo shirt, and that was it. No suit, no
Right.
nothing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I go to the next one, and they're like, "Hey, can you do another interview?" And I say, "Sure." I do another interview. And again, I'm just like, Lord, every step of the way, my prayer
Mhm.
was, "Lord, I
Yeah.
don't, if you're not in it, I don't want it.
Right.
If you're not in it, I don't want it." And
Mhm.
I had so much peace about it. I had so
Mhm.
much peace about it. "Lord, if you're not in it, I don't want it. I don't know what we'll do, but we'll figure it out. Lord, I don't know." And so I'm just chilling. And now we're like week 3 of being laid off. It's Thanksgiving week. I get a phone call. This company that I just threw a resume out to when I didn't even need a job. I just had sent them just to test something out. They make me an offer. They make me an offer for a position that's hybrid and remote. They make me an offer that's more than what I was making at the previous job. And I start working for them the first week of December. So a month,
Wow.
a month. And God kind of put me. And in that whole situation, everyone was looking at me and everyone's like, you are really calm. You are really,
Right.
you're really chill about this whole situation. You are really chill. I'm preaching my heart out at church. I'm telling people about God's faithfulness, and
Yeah.
and they're like, yo, I would be, I had people like, do you want us to go down to your old office and take care of some people? Do you want us to bust, because I got some friends who are still in
Yeah,
the hood.
yeah. I
They'll
hear you.
they'll take one for you. They'll do some stuff. And I was
Right.
like, no, we're good. And there was peace, and there was peace, and there was peace, and there was peace, and there was peace. And I saw God's faithfulness. And part of the reason why I was able to have that peace is because I've gotten to a place in my life where I've seen God's faithfulness in my life.
Right.
Now to the point that I'm like, you know what? He's taken care of me before.
Mm-hmm.
I know that he'll take care of me now. And so the secret to kind of that peace and the secret to like that level is just realizing where God is taking you. Even talking this whole story, I have seen God's hand from when I was 4 years old.
Yeah.
And and he's been faithful that whole time. Why would he change now? Why would he fail me now? Right? And so that's the realization in my heart. That's the mindset that I walk through life with. And I am so much more relaxed about everything, because I know that he's in control.
Yes. First of all, thank you for sharing that. I feel like I don't know when this happens for different people, but I feel like sometimes we're tested over and over until God is like, all right, I'm gonna give you another chance to actually trust me.
Yeah.
Like fully trust me. And like I said, I think it happens at different times and people's walks. But I feel like I knew when I was like, this is an opportunity. Like I'm not even gonna trust myself out anymore. I've done that before. Let's see what trusting you really looks like.
And you'll get opportunities to do that. I think all of life is an opportunity to test whether you really believe the things that you sing, the things you say, the things that you go to church and hear. Mm-hmm. I think all of life is like that. And the sooner you come around and really just live it and go, all right, cool.
Yeah.
The easier it goes for you in your life. I think it's just something about, and you've said the word a few times, surrender. There's just something about surrendering your life and every aspect of your life. Your children, your career, your money.
Yeah.
All of those things I don't stress money because it's not my money.
Right.
I don't stress the kids because they're not my kids. They belong to him. We dedicate them to him for a reason. Mm-hmm. They're not, they don't, I don't own them.
Yes.
Jobs go, friends, all that other stuff goes. It's really like, Lord, you're faithful, and so my job is just to stay faithful.
That's it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you so much for just being open, transparent, and just sharing your story. Because I know that someone is absolutely going to be blessed by it for sure. So.
Well, I hope so, and I love chopping it up with you, and this was fun. So, yeah.
Tell Millie and the kids I said hello.
Will do.